The best smiles are the ones you can cause. So I decided to have just a quote not a quote, a statement in the description of my videos instead of a whole paragraph, because one little statement can say a lot more than anything else I could write. So I think that kind of says it all. This video is called Toxic Positivity, and it's about balancing between maturity and happiness. I think that a lot of happy people are doing it as kind of a way of compensating instead of actually being happy, because not everybody has a good relationship with faith. What is faith? Faith is this light that you can have radiating off of you, this beautiful positive energy, and that it's untouchable. You're completely invulnerable to everything, but you feel vulnerable when you stop believing in that light, when you start to believe things like, I'm not good enough for that, there's something that I have to do that I'm not good enough for. When you start to believe anything that makes you feel small, and when you believe these things, you are not going to continue to believe them actively, because we have survival instincts. Things like this trigger reactions in our body that we have to hide it from. So we say, oh, we're vulnerable there, build a wall around it, hide it, build a fortress around it. And everyone does this to a different level, because on some level, some people have a really strong connection to the truth. I believe in reincarnation. I believe that people sometimes just come here and you can tell that they've already been around the block a bunch of times and they've gone through all the lessons. You can reincarnate a million times and still not learn the same lesson, because it's based on your free will. You can continue to make the wrong decision every single time, or you can make the right decision. And to me, an old soul is someone who made the right decision way more often than the wrong one. Someone who had a much better relationship with faith, and they just said, I'm going to make the right decision here. And where does that come from? That comes from love. It comes from empathy. It comes from this feeling that everyone and everything is connected, and the way that you treat other people is always what's going to matter the most. So when you have that mentality, that's when you're really making... I just saw that snowman move out of the corner of my eye. Am I seeing things? Rewind the video and tell me if it moved, or am I losing my mind? That is really creepy. Okay. Anyway, maybe I'm just tired, because it is, like, really late right now when I'm filming this. But, and by the way, if you haven't seen me with my glasses, now you have. I just felt like wearing these. That's really the only reason I have them on. I don't need them to do this. I don't need my glasses for anything except watching movies and driving, but I don't even have my license yet, so pretty much just watching movies. And I don't even always wear them, because my vision's not that bad. It's just not 2020. 2020 was such a crazy year. But it set off this event, this series of events that started to help people to wake up to what's going on, which is why people are more open to hearing things like this. They're more open to learning about things like this. And these topics that I'm doing now, like last week I talked about a bill that's going around that's like, I don't know how big of a deal it is, but I've seen a lot of people talking about it. So people are talking about it, even if it's not everyone. But this week I'm talking about toxic positivity. That's another term that people talk about. So hopefully talking about these somewhat relevant or at least known topics will attract a different audience, because I want to start getting an audience and I want people to have some idea of what to expect from my channel. And I have a lot of other stuff planned, and I don't know when I'm gonna do it, but I'll do what I do whenever I do it. I can't make any promises. But with this video, I just want to, it's probably going to be shorter because I don't have too much to say. I just want to finish explaining the light thing. So faith is basically when you believe that everything and everyone is connected and that you're safe, that you have this invincible light protecting you, and that light will always guide you to where you need to be. Excuse me, I don't know why I keep burping. And it's like radiating from within you. And when you emit this light, you are more attractive to people. They want to be around you because it's like a healing light. It's a healing energy, and people need to be healed. But the thing is that I could think about this person who's at work who doesn't want to do anything. They're like, you know, everyone knows this person who's like, I don't want to do that. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm afraid, I'm new. And then you have to do the work for them. Tell me you haven't, maybe in school, there was that one kid in the class, the people who just act like they can't do anything and then everyone else has to do their work for them. Not everyone takes it to that extreme, because on some level, everyone has, like I said, it's all based on your free will. Some people are really old souls, some people aren't. And I don't think it actually has anything to do with age or how many times you've reincarnated, as much as it is about how many times you made a better decision. Because we all have the same opportunities to make good decisions, and some people just don't. Some people just progressively make the fear-based decision, and it's a choice between fear and love. So which are you going to choose? And if you keep choosing fear, that means that you keep choosing to believe that you don't have a light within you and that you're vulnerable and afraid, which is basically like, I can't do it for me. And there's no empathy in that decision. There's no, oh, but now someone else has to do my work for me. There's just, I'm helpless, help me. And to be needy is to insult all of the love and the light and the support that you have around you. It's to say that it's not there, to feel like it's insulting to that. I mean, how would you feel if you were putting a lot of your time and energy into loving and taking care of someone and they were just taking advantage of it? They were either not noticing it, and sometimes that's sad. Sometimes it's like some people just do not believe that they're lovable, and they do not believe anything kind anyone ever says about them. And that's really sad. But you don't want to attack this person. You don't want to say, that's so insulting to do that, because that's not going to help them at all. That's, you know, you can just say, wow, this person is clearly battling with their faith in themselves, and I can't help them. I can try, but it's, you know, if they're not going to notice it or appreciate it, then it's not worth my time. So what you do is you plant a seed. You say something that's kind, something that's inspiring, something that's motivating, and something that comes from a place of respect. Something that's not like condescending, like, oh, one day you'll get it, or, you know, some pretentious piece of advice like, here's the real truth about this, but just something that you know that they already know. Just remind them of it. Something simple, something that isn't super deep or complicated. Something as simple as the quote I started this video with, like, the best smiles are the ones you can cause. Just say something like that. Something to just plant a little seed in their head. Something that they already know is true. And then they'll think about it and they'll be like, oh yeah, you're right. but it takes time. And often with people, it needs to be their own decision. Like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. So, what is toxic positivity? Toxic positivity is when this type of person who doesn't have faith, who's built a shell around that vulnerable part of ourselves. Because what we do is when we feel vulnerable, our instincts kick in and they're going to react in a number of different ways. Now, depending on the type of person that you are, the types of decisions that you tend to make, your fortress that you've built around the vulnerable part of you is going to look very different. For some people, it's still there, but they're never going to hurt someone. They might have this fortress protecting them, but when a situation comes up where they realize that someone else is going to have to do their work for them, they'll say, no, 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 I'll do it. That's my responsibility. And that's really, I guess, what maturity is. It's about taking responsibility for what you are actually responsible for. And a lot of people take responsibility for things that they're not responsible for, and they do a lot of work that no one asked them to do, and then they complain all the time. They just constantly complain. And it's like, nobody needed you to do that. You don't have to be complaining right now. But they do it anyway. And that's a victimhood mentality. That's when you like seeing yourself as a victim, as someone helpless, because then you get to bitch and you get to complain and you get to take all the sympathy. And you get to feel helpless and ask for help. And again, like with everything, there's always different levels that people do this. I mean, some people take this, it could be as simple as just like lying about how you're feeling, just saying, oh, I'm happy, but really you're not. Or it could escalate to something as extreme as becoming a sociopath, serial killer, or even a child molester, doing all sorts of things that are so dark and come from such a lack of empathy. But when you tap into the waters of making decisions that don't involve empathy, you can stay in the shallow end or you can get really deep. And the farther out in that lake you go, then the further you are from empathy itself. And when you do that, you can end up in situations where people are going to judge you. People are going to think terrible things about you. They're going to stray from empathy themselves, because there's no empathy in judgment. You should not judge people. I don't think anyone needed to tell me this, because all my life I always was able to see, not necessarily see the good in people, but I was always able to see the part of them that was underneath their fortress. And I liked to talk to that part of them. I never really acknowledged the other part of them. I never wanted to humor the facade. So I would never condescend or patronize anyone. Even as a little kid, when I looked at people, I would talk to the vulnerable part of them, because I know that it's still there, and I know that people prefer being treated with respect. So I wanted to do a video on treating children and animals with respect instead of patronizing them, but I decided to just make it part of this video because I don't know how much more I really have to say on that, besides that children and animals are really no different from adults. Everyone is on a different level of maturity and spiritual evolution. Nobody's exactly the same. And you have to be able to treat people and look at the part of them that's the same instead of the part that's different. But people see things on a surface level. People see what's on the outside. People talk to the facade. So you can have someone who's really just wants to look scary or powerful or happy, and you can talk to that part of them. Or you can look at what's inside and not even think about it, but just talk to what's actually there. And I do this without thinking about it. I always have. And I never really liked being around kids because they're not mine. I don't know what I'm allowed to say and not say or do and not do because I don't want angry parents. Everybody has a different idea of how their kids should be raised and what their kids should and shouldn't be exposed to. And I just don't want the stress of making sure that I'm treating the kid the way that the parents want me to. Because one thing I don't do naturally is treat kids the way that other people treat them. It takes effort, it takes extra thought for me to do that, and it feels wrong. Because what I instinctively want to do when I'm with a kid is talk to them the same way that I talk to anyone. And that doesn't mean telling them about things that they might not already know about. That doesn't mean being stupid and just saying, hey, so do you know about this and that and this rated R movie or whatever, like it. But what I do is I just talk to them like they're not stupid, and I'll be honest with them. I'll treat them like anyone, but I base it on them specifically because I feel like I can see them. I'm not looking at what's on the outside, which is a little baby. But I was able to do that as a baby, and adults felt like they could have real conversations with me when I was like 3 years old. So that's just always the way that I've been. And I didn't realize that that wasn't normal. But then people say things like, at my job, so like, oh, everyone knows you're the nicest one here, and he's always in such a good mood. I don't know how he does that. Or, people who watch these videos are like, you have such a soothing voice. And I'm like, I do? Like, people say this stuff and I don't realize it. And then I think about it, and then I just keep thinking about it because that's really all I can do is put thought into it and try to understand it. And what I was thinking about this week was people who don't really have that same way of looking at things. Because, like I said, I didn't know that this wasn't normal. This is just the way that I've always been, the way that I've always seen the world. But I didn't realize that not everyone thought that way. So I wanted to talk about why that is and maybe make it make more sense. I mean, that's always what I'm trying to do. Make things make sense that don't already just naturally make sense. So, for the most part, what you learn in these videos is stuff that you already knew, but I'm just kind of explaining it in a different way. But, I guess with the happiness thing, toxic positivity, there are people who are happy all the time, but are they really happy all the time? Or is it a facade? Is it what their way of shielding themselves from the vulnerable part? Because I think when you're real, when you take down a lot of your walls and you start looking at the world for what it really is, you're going to see this giant hot mess that is going to take a lot of time and effort to clean up. And when you start to feel all the heavy energy of all the darkness that's in the world and all the work that needs to be done, it can be a real bummer. And there's also a very real possibility that all this is going to be gone eventually. Like, it's not a guarantee because, like I said, it's all based on free will. And if we continue to make certain decisions and go in the wrong direction as a collective, then there could be a situation that looks like a mass wiping out of our species. And if that's a possibility, how can you just be happy and motivated all the time? How can you just want to get out of bed and go to work and do your thing and smile? You're going to get real bummed. You're going to feel like you were running and then someone just took a giant mallet and whacked you into a brick wall and you're just kind of recovering from it. And you could feel that and dissociate and just go, I'm happy anyway. Or you could feel it and be like, wow, that just happened. And then you learn to walk again, you get back up and you keep going. And you learn to run even stronger so that this time you can push that mallet away. You're stronger than it. It's not going to hit you. And you can bring people with you so that you have an army to push it back. And you know what I mean? Like that in that metaphor, like you are overcoming it, but you can't do it alone. I can't do it alone. You know, like what I'm talking about, saving the world, basically. I cannot do that by myself. It's literally impossible for one human being to make a difference for the rest of the world. If you guys aren't thinking for yourselves and actively trying to be more in touch with that light, to nurture it so that it can grow and you can glow and emit a powerful light, you have to be able to look inward, and you have to be able to find strength within yourself. I can't do that for you. I can teach you how to do it. I can tell you what I did, but I can't do it for you. I can go through it with you. It's all I can do. But you gotta be with me on this. Otherwise, it's all gonna be for nothing. And that's why I struggle with motivation, because I just kind of know that all the time in the back of my mind. I know that there is a chance that all of this is just going to be wiped away eventually. So any time or effort that I could spend on it just seems futile. But I also know that it's not. I also know that if I think that way, I'm kind of condemning it to just happen. And if I continue to try, then there actually is a chance that that won't happen. But you know, like it's just hard to overcome that battle. But that's how you earn happiness. People try to cheat and be happy anyway, and that's when they're being inauthentic. That's when they're not operating on a high vibration, because when you operate on a high vibration, you're coming from a place of empathy, and you're going to be thinking a lot about other people. You're not going to be the person who lets other people do your work. You're always going to take responsibility for sorry about that, for the energy that you put out, for the things that you do, the things that you say, and just in general for what you are responsible for. You will take responsibility. And that's not to say that in a literal sense you always have to go to work. You are allowed to take a mental health day. You should actually, because if anyone is expecting you, because you have to remember it's a two-way street. If anyone is expecting you to do all the work, then you have to think about, are people treating you with the same level of empathy and respect that you're treating them? And you have to make sure that your boundaries are clear, that you are only giving empathy and respect to people who would do the same for you. And if you're giving your time and energy to people who wouldn't do the same for you, then think about the fact that there's almost certainly, no, not almost, there is certainly someone else out there who you could be helping, who would actually appreciate it and who would do the same for you. But instead, you're spending your time helping someone who isn't actually going to be helped at all. They're just going to go right back to where they started, as if you never helped them in the first place. You cannot pour into an empty cup. Or you can't pour from an empty cup, and you also cannot fill a cup that has holes in it. If the cup has holes, it's just gonna, they gotta learn to patch their holes. They gotta learn to balance and hold the cup steady so it's not spilling out. They're coming up to you and saying, please fill my cup, please fill me up with light. And then you fill them with light, and it just goes right back out of them, because they are in a pattern of darkness, and they're not interested in doing the work to change that. So whatever you do to them, it's not going to really help. They have to make a decision to want to change the way that they think, the way that they do things, and that has to come from a place of love, not laziness, not entitlement, not ego, not fear, which is all about control. Fear is about trying to control things that you think are stronger than you, things that you need to control, but you feel like you can't. And that's where all these negative emotions come from. Hate, anger, jealousy, judgment. They come from this idea that there's something that you need to control, but you don't feel you're powerful enough or capable of controlling it, so you're afraid of it, and then you don't want to acknowledge that fear, so you turn it into anger, and then you just become bitter and entitled. And let's be honest, unpleasant. And then at the age of 30, you can be exhibiting behaviors that would be understandable in a 6-year-old. And I think we need to start calling that out for what it is. I would love to see people just say, hey, man, that's unacceptable. I remember being in kindergarten, and there were little things that the kids would do, and I would hear the teachers say, that's unacceptable, or that's not appropriate. And I would love to hear adults talked to the same way that teachers talk to little kids, because adults are the ones whose behavior is so questionable. It makes sense in kids. Kids are supposed to be making those mistakes. That's how they learn from them. We're supposed to be nurturing their development so that they learn how to make the right decisions and they learn how to have a better relationship with faith and explain to them why they should make those decisions. But no, what we do, we tell someone to do something and the kid says why, and we say because, and then the kid just has to do it. A lot of people who teach, like I was trained at my job, and I was told, there were a lot of things that I was told to do. Nobody told me why. And gradually as I worked there, I understood why. And then I was able to do it better, because once I understood why it needed to be done, then I could start making my own decisions. Like at first I was told, I work at Rite Aid, and there's these little tags, these signs that we put on to let people know that things are on sale. There's different ones that say different things. Some say right by, like RITE, like Rite Aid. Some say as advertised. Then some have little blue things that say like Planet Proud or new item, or different things that are like representing different things. And there's some tags that you're supposed to leave on, and when we get these tags every week, we're supposed to put them on the old one. And some they all have dates on them for when you're supposed to take them off. And if someone told me that you take off the ones that once it gets to that date, I could look at it and say, okay, well the tag that I'm putting above this has the same date, which means that the tag underneath it is never going to be seen again. So I might as well just remove that tag and put the other one above it. And that's a decision that I couldn't have made based on the information I was originally given, which was if it says right by, you leave it up. That's all I knew. So I was in a situation once where I was putting on tags that were exactly the same. It was a copy of the other tag. And all I knew was that I wasn't supposed to take off the ones that said right by. So I was putting an exact copy over it. And I'm thinking, how can this be right? Like, it's the exact same thing. Why even put it on? And then I asked, and they said, oh, you don't have to put those on. And I'm thinking, if you had just explained to me the reason that you leave the right bys up, and granted, it was a different person. Like, it's not like I learned all this from one person, but different people gave me different bits of information, and gradually I understood it. But it's just because that's just not how we teach people things. That the way that we think, okay, and do this and do this and do this, but we're not interested in explaining why it needs to be done. And I think I've always been good at explaining game rules. Like, I just was thinking about that earlier today. As I was playing a game with my mom and my grandma, they were explaining the rules and I was not getting it. And once I understood it, I felt like I could have explained it a lot quicker. And I had that happen with my grandpa too, because he was explaining something, or he came into the kitchen and he asked my grandma a question, and then I said, you could have just said this, and it would have been a lot clearer what you wanted to know. And instead you said like something totally different, so her answer, he was like, so did you like, or did you like that new table, or what did that new table look like, or something? And she started describing it, and he goes, oh, I don't want to know what it looked like. And I'm like, well, that's what you asked. And I'm like, you could have just said, did you like it, and did you get it? Because that's actually the information that he wanted. You know what I'm talking about? So I've always just been, I look at things and I'm like, what is the clearest way to explain this? And I've been noticing lately that a lot of people don't just naturally do that. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's like just the way that we're taught to explain things or think of things. Maybe it's just because not everyone is a teacher. But everyone's different. I'm not saying that it's good or bad. It's just, I think that, like, there are some things that we should be able to explain. Like, why I brought this up in the first place was how we patronize kids. And, sorry, I don't know why I keep burping. I must have burped like 5 times already in this video. Little ones. But, probably to make up for the videos that I made that I didn't burp in, because I'm supposed to burp in every video. It's like a running joke on my channel that nobody else knows about but me. I don't think I've ever made a video without burping, but if I have, I just made up for it by burping a bunch of times in this one. Anyway, this is 30 minutes. I didn't want it to be this long, so I'm just gonna wrap this up. You shouldn't patronize kids because kids can understand a lot more than you give them credit for. You shouldn't tell someone to do something and not give them an explanation for why they need to do it. And if you're not good at explaining things, that's okay. Just don't be a teacher. I mean, that's really all that means. Like, I mean, that's like criticizing people for not being good at singing. Like, then just don't be a singer. It's like, it doesn't matter. But so yeah, that was just me kind of going off on a tangent and realizing there's a lot of things that I realize about myself that I thought was normal, and then I realized it's not normal or common. And I'm not trying to like toot my own horn, I guess, but it's not like I'm bragging. I'm just pointing things out that I noticed that are different. And you know, I don't think that people, I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I'm done. I did this video. I said what I wanted to say. In conclusion, toxic positivity is when you are being positive, but it's coming from a place of wanting to escape reality. You are not operating on a high vibration, but you don't want to acknowledge that. These are the same types of people who need trigger warnings because they don't want to hear or see anything that reminds them of their trauma, or they don't want to hear certain words. And sometimes the words usually comes from more of a self-righteous place than an empathetic place. People lately in like woke culture, which is meant to be more about empathy and fixing things that are just really messed up, but it comes from this place of presuming an understanding of moral philosophy. And I think that's something that needs to be talked about more. And it still feeds into this way of black and white thinking that I think is really unhealthy. But a lot of people who are woke, even though I think that they're closer now, they're uncovering a lot of good information and pointing out a lot of messed up things that have been going on for a long time, a lot of them get really self-righteous. And that is toxic. Even though you're preaching good information, usually anti-racism, anti-homophobia, anti-fascism, even sometimes anti-capitalism. And yet, somehow it can just be very aggressive and self-righteous and toxic positivity. And then there's the people who just don't want to hear about any of it. They're not shoving their opinions down their throat or down your throat, but they're just offended by everything. Anything that reminds them of anything they don't like about the world, anything that reminds them of racism, wars, darkness of any kind that just exists in the world. If they see it and it reminds them of it, they turn around and they do something else. They live in a little fantasy where they're safe. And that is not good. That's not healthy. And it's just, it's not helping anybody. So if you do that, this video is for you. And remember, there's nothing wrong with these things. If you know, if any of the stuff that I'm saying about Like, I'm sure everyone can resonate with some aspect of the types of people I'm talking about. And if you resonate with the type of person who's annoyed by the person who's being toxic and positive, then that's one thing. If you resonate with the person who is toxic and positive, I don't know how to say toxic positivity as a type of person, but then just think about what I'm saying and try to understand where it's actually coming from. And the only advice I can give you is just try to work on your relationship with whatever God means to you. I don't believe that there is one true religion. I believe that God is whatever you want God to be. You can personify God. You can think of God as light, or yourself, your higher self. You can think of God as love, or you can think of God as everything, as the universe itself. It doesn't matter. I don't care what God means to you, as long as God is something that you can use to feel powerful. And like, when it comes to being a warrior for love, a warrior fighting for empathy and kindness, that you are capable of anything, that you're as powerful as it gets. That's what you need to believe. I want to see you on the battlefield, running, risking your life, knowing that you're fighting on the right side of history. And that's basically what it is. And you believe that you're not going to get killed, because your body is just a body. What you're fighting for matters more. So don't be afraid. Don't chicken out. Don't hide from reality, because reality is there whether you hide from it or not. Whether you live in a bubble or not, you can deny it, you can try to pretend that none of it is real, and live in a little safe space, but it's still there. All of this darkness and stuff that you're trying not to acknowledge is still happening. And what are you really doing about it, besides feeling bad? Probably not much. So then there's the people who don't think about it at all. They're just smiling and smiling and smiling. But remember that the best smiles are the ones that you can put on other people's faces. And that's all you need to know. When you are smiling and it's authentic, it's not a way of hiding, it's not a way of compensating, it's probably because you realized that you were being yourself and you were making other people smile. And you were proud of yourself, genuinely happy. That's what true happiness is, and it's rare. It's a rare feeling, but it's so special. And it's special because it's not constant. It's special because you earned it. And it's not constant even if you're radiating that light, because even though that light will make you feel good, you're constantly in different situations. Sometimes feeling good means crying. Doesn't it feel good to just have a really good sob about something that's sad, or to be mad about something that's infuriating? So that's the beauty of life, being able to flow with emotions and not try to feel one thing all the time. I'll see you next week. Thank you for watching.